a lot we're going to cover. This gentleman, a voice of reason, a voice of so many in this community, a talk show host, a businessman, a gentleman who's on the board of directors of Charlottesville Tomorrow. This gentleman behind the scenes is helping shape policy, is helping shaping decision making, and frankly is one of the leaders in this community that is looked upon for guidance. So we're going to spend extra time with this gentleman on this show. We'll have Pete Snyder, who's running for governor of Virginia in the 1 o'clock hour, which I'm very excited about. This is going to be a show that is real. I mean, I think you guys have been seeing lately that we've been doing programs that are real, that are unafraid, that may ruffle feathers, but it's conversation that needs to be had. And I think we all can agree that right now, Charlottesville, like so many communities in the country, is a bit fragile and feeling vulnerable. So we're going to spend some time with Troy Razor Robinson. The dynamic aspect of this show is you can give props to Razor. You can ask him questions. You can change the conversation by putting your thoughts in the comment section on any of the social media platforms you're watching this show upon. This is going to be something that is going to be real talk, guys. It's going to be real talk. Let us know where you're watching the show from. We'll get you up on on screen. I got Northern Virginia watching, Richmond. We got Bristol. We see Hendersonville, North Carolina on our heat map here. Folks outside Charleston, in Buckhead, in Atlanta watching the program here. Folks in Florida. Family in Long Island watching the show. What's up, family? We got Pennsylvania in the house. 6 states on the show: Central Virginia, Northern Virginia, Richmond, Southwestern Virginia. This is going to be something. J-Dubs, we can rock and roll when you're ready. Good Wednesday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you for joining us on the I Love CVille show. We are live in Charlottesville, across Central Virginia, in the Commonwealth, in the country, on the I Love CVille network, and we're presented and powered by Ting Fiber Internet. Crazy fast internet, Ting Fiber Internet. Today's show, a special one. We'll spend the first 30 minutes with Troy Razor Robinson. Undoubtedly a compass and North Star in this Central Virginia community. The gentleman's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. The gentleman's a father, a husband, a voice of reason, on the board of directors of Charlottesville Tomorrow. And today, 2 gentlemen will have a conversation about topics in this community that frankly mean a lot to a lot of people. It's going to be real. We're not going to skirt around stuff. We're going to be frank. We may make you uncomfortable, but it's the type of conversations we need to take the community where it needs to go. I think we're all in agreement right now. Charlottesville, like many communities in this country, a bit fragile and seeking an identity. We'll talk about those topics here on the I Love CVille show. I want to get a couple of items out of the notebook first before we welcome Razor to the show, and we'll do that in 20 seconds. If you want to give props to Razor, like Ali has done from Philadelphia, just put it in the feed. We're live on every social media platform known to mankind right now. First, April 6th, we will host a live debate here that will be the most watched debate in Charlottesville, Virginia history. It will be hosted by former City Councilor Kathy Galvin. All the candidates that are running for City Council will be in this studio with former Councilor Kathy Galvin asking questions to them. Another item out of the notebook, which we've covered very strongly and very efficiently on this program, is Virginia Governor Ralph Northam Wednesday proposed legalizing simple marijuana possession of up to 1 ounce on July 1st of this year instead of 2024. This is something that means a lot to me because we certainly know the disparity when it comes to arrests from marijuana. Black folks are 3 times more likely to get popped by Johnny Law than white folks. And for my book, that ain't right. That ain't right. Judah Wickhauer is our director. My friend, if you can go to the studio camera first, and let's welcome Razor to the show. Troy,
Hey.
first, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm at a pivotal point in my life right now, so your show plays a major part of that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Introduce for the very few in this community who do not know you, and you are well known. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, first off, I'm fortunate enough to be a Christian. I am the husband of the lovely Maxelia Robinson, creator of In My Humble Opinion talk show.
Dynamic lady.
Yes, she is. I'm the owner of, with my wife, Order Up Mobile Food Cart and Catering. I am on board of directors for Charlottesville Tomorrow. I own Inspirational Cuts Barbershop out in Greene County, Virginia. And I have a few other things going on, too. So,
He's got a lot in the hopper. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a leader, board of director at Charlottesville Tomorrow. Sir, you are a broadcaster extraordinaire.
Thank you.
You are taking the lead slot today. I will follow your lead anywhere you want to go, Troy.
Well, if I may start off, I'd like for everybody to know, one, I'm not here in representation of any business or group that I'm with.
Sure.
And number two, and most importantly, my views are mine. They do not represent every black male in America. You know, that has been a problem to where it's been shown by the media, which I'm part of,
Sure.
that when an African American says something, it covers the whole diaspora of everybody. That's not true. So I will be saying that a couple times throughout the show.
Respect.
That these are my opinions. They're my life experiences and also what I see. There are rooms that I am privy to that everybody that looks like me isn't.
Sure.
You know, so I want people to know that these are my views and not the black community as a whole's views.
Sure.
Yep.
Well said. What's the first topic you want to cover?
Well, let's go ahead and grab the bull by the horns.
Sure.
A lot of people, older, young, white, black, don't want to continue talking about racism, right? And the whole white-black separation that we're having right now, right? But I sincerely believe that the reason it's so big of a problem is we're not communicating. We're assuming what the other person feels or thinks. You know, you have become a gatekeeper to a lot of people, a lot of entities. You know, you, depending on what level of passion you put on it, is how people respond to that. So you definitely, for me, had to be somebody that I spoke with, you know, openly.
Thank you.
So, yep. So that's
Thank
where
you.
I'm at.
I know, like you, we are aware of the influence we have in the community and the influence and responsibility that comes with a microphone.
Yeah.
And folks listening and watching.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, but I know your character. I don't think neither you nor I take that influence or responsibility lightly.
I used to, you know what I'm saying? I used to, Dr. Wes Bellamy called me out on the situation one time. Like, I was like, I'm just me speaking. It's my words. And then he explained to me, like, you have a platform, you have a responsibility. And then, you know, I know saying his name for a lot of people immediately makes you shift to something that you don't like. But if it doesn't make the words that were said untrue. So when it comes to, let me ask you this, Jared.
Sure.
You have acknowledged, and we all know that there has been a history that we don't exactly find pleasant in Charlottesville when it comes to black and white people.
Right.
But what is the problem with somebody saying where they are in that situation? Why is that so hard to receive? That's a conversation that needs to be had.
Sure.
Like, if we want change, why can't we talk about it? You said so yourself in your last interview that you had with Yolanda Coles. Wonderful, wonderful interview. That when she asked you, are there any things that you could do to go along with what the mayor does? And you said, I can't get past the language, right? So that resonated with me huge, because just like you said, you couldn't get past the language. How is it not okay for people not to get past where they're living at in the situation? Just because we have a black mayor in Charlottesville doesn't mean that it's not conducive to black people, or is conducive to black people. People shouldn't say that. How is it not good for black people? You got a black mayor. Well, that's one person.
Right.
in their one circumstance, but you can't make it fit everybody.
Sure.
So
Sure. My response to that, from my standpoint, like you, one man speaking for one man.
right, okay.
Like, one man speaking for one man here. I see the role of the mayor, not Nakaya, not Mike Signer, not any other mayor we've had, but I see the role as the mayor in general as to be the biggest advocate and champion for the community.
Yeah,
Someone that galvanizes everyone together and shouts from the tip of Carter's Mountain how phenomenal this community is to live upon. And I respect Mayor Nakaya Walker's hustle. I can't imagine what it's like to be an African American growing up, a female African American, growing up in a town like Charlottesville that undoubtedly has some skeletons in its closet, racist skeletons in its closet that it has to deal with. I cannot imagine walking in her shoes. First in her family to go to college. She has a degree from VCU. There are so many aspects of the mayor that are winner.
Right.
You know, we're sports fans. I mean, first female black mayor in the history of the town. Willing and having the tenacity and the thickness of skin to deal with all the you-know-what that she's dealing with. Stuff that you and I probably aren't dealing with, right?
Right.
Yeah, what she's dealing with is a completely different level.
Right.
I mean, she has so many qualities that are like, that's a winner.
right,
My concern was the position, once named, especially mayor, not counselor, but mayor. That position is one of evangelist and champion of the community.
I agree.
That's what my issue was with
Now-
her language.
Now let me ask you this: does the position, any position, override the truth?
In this, okay, that's a great question. In this particular circumstance, the truth is that there still is tremendous racism in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Still is. I hope we're making steps forward since the destruction of Vinegar Hill. But frankly, that's not me to decide, to
Right.
determine.
Right.
From my standpoint, I see her platform, and she has arguably the most influential and largest platform of anyone in this 300,000 person Central
Without a
Virginia
doubt.
community. I see her platform as one that could be utilized for solutions-oriented action that could help close the wealth and racial and equity gap that we have in this community. My concern is that when she utilizes language like the R word and like the C word from
Yeah.
her poem,
Yeah.
that so many of those 300,000 can't get beyond it
Yeah.
to hear the meaning of what she's trying to project.
Okay. That I agree with you. That still doesn't like answer the question, so to speak, that I asked you. But let me ask it a different way. When it comes to equality of this town or anywhere, African Americans, people of brown color, black, brown, whatever, have been knocking on the door for a long time, saying make it equal. What Nakaya did with her verbiage, while it might not have been what I would have used, picked up a rock and threw it at the window. What people did was look out the window and say at what her situation was and say, why did you throw a rock at my window? And never addressed the situation. So getting back to what I'd asked you, is there any position that exists that overrides the truth on like a yes, no? If it isn't a position and the truth is always what we should follow, because I believe you always say the golden rule is respect. Well, if you respect a person, you'll tell the truth about them. So my question would be, is there any position that the truth should not come first?
The truth should always come first, whether it's love, whether it's marriage, raising our kids, running our business, being in front of a microphone like this.
Yeah.
In this particular circumstance,
Okay.
I think the truth was lost. And why I think the truth was lost was because word choice is such a powerful tool.
Right.
especially in this digital social media age where things go viral. So many of us, including myself,
Yeah.
had a hard time getting around the sexually violent language that was utilized to make a point. The sexually violent language was a metaphor for the truth, which means Charlottesville has very concerning things that it has to reckon itself with. Okay? We took 150 to 200 families in Vinegar Hill and we took away their homes and their businesses. Of course, this is going to have a generational impact on Central Virginia, and it most certainly has.
Yeah.
However, because of the word choice utilized, in today's ADD society, where we make a decision based on scrolling through a news feed, oftentimes just reading headlines and never even digging into a story.
True.
That word choice, for so many, that's all they could focus on. So my main concern was the word choice and the execution of what she was trying to do.
Okay. What you absolutely right, and this is one reason why I refer to you as a gatekeeper of something. You say a lot of impactful things that really resonate with me a lot of times, more often than not. And when it came to, you had said with Yolanda, you recognize your position, your privilege that you have.
Yes.
What kind of made me say, okay, I got to ask Jerry, how does this work? Is she wrote and I got to commend you because you don't say it anymore. Like you're like, it was too hurtful. I'm not gonna say it anymore. But she wrote it one time on a news feed or her social media.
She wrote it twice.
Or she wrote it twice.
Yeah.
And you talked about how hurtful it was. But when I learned about it from you and you saying it almost 15 times during the show.
The day of.
Right. So then I was wondering, how is it so bad for an African-American woman or somebody to say it, but it was, you found justification in you repeating it in your platform so many times?
Sure, and that's a fair question. My response to that would be the day of, I was covering the news.
Okay.
And then the next day, I chose to use R word and C word.
Yeah.
And I was taken aback by the responses that I received from women about how it made them feel, because women who had been raped themselves and how it made them feel. And then you know what I was really taken aback by? When men started reaching out to me.
See, when I was, because I don't really miss any of your shows, right? So when you said that, I was like, I can't relate to that. Like, I've never been abused.
Me either.
In any form or fashion, you know, besides what society takes me through as an African-American male.
Right.
I'll give you a scenario that happened. You know, we had the hot dog cart on the downtown mall. I purchased my cart from my brother Tyler Berry, owned Catch the Chef. You know, he got me started in the business.
Love Tyler.
Right? So we would be down there, and it's this one gentleman, his face, I'll never be able to get it out my mind. He walks down on the bank side of the mall, sunglasses, beard, sometimes flip-flops, suit all the time, you know, works down here. And I would speak to him week after week. He wouldn't speak. My wife speak, he wouldn't speak. He would stop, talk to people in front of our car, wouldn't speak. My 3-year-old son at the time, Dax, was down there, and he's a loving child, you know. So he's, hello, sir, hello, sir. He thinks that he doesn't hear him, and he proceeds to follow him down the downtown mall and still says hello. So we call him back, and he's like, why won't he speak to me? And my wife, Maxilia, who always tries to find the best in a person, says, I can understand him not speaking to you, even me, but this is a child just saying hi. And her eyes are filling up with water. And I had to explain to her, and this is just being frank, he doesn't see a child. He sees a nigga. Young, old, that's all he sees. And it broke her heart because he was just getting started in Earth and in this life on earth, and he's already been pitted into a lower position. Doesn't matter who he is, you know. So when I thought about that particular situation and me not being able to get that guy's face out of my head, and I see him all the time, you know, if I had to compare any R word to a scenario, it was what it took from my wife, you know, something that it took from my child because he couldn't understand it. And that is the part of racism that we haven't been able to make the connection between white and black, is that while you shouldn't be held accountable for your great-granddaddy's mistakes, no more than me, it's no doubt that a lot of the systems that are set in place are still based off of that old ideology, you know, where for some people, they can't get past your nationality, you know.
How did you handle that with your son?
He was 3, to be honest with you. I just told him, you know, not everybody is as nice as you. And I learned that from my wife. That was what she used to, that was along the lines of how she would say something to explain to the children. You know, not everybody is as nice as you. But it was a hard thing because, you know, the man in me, you know, I'm a man's man, you know, wanted to say something, take action, so to speak, you know.
Why did you not?
And because if I do, I'm the angry black man on the downtown mall, bullying people around because they won't buy his food. You know, the stereotype is going to fit. It's not going anywhere.
And see, that's the unfortunate thing is for better or worse, and it's mainly for worse. In 2021, March 31st, perception is reality.
Yeah.
And
now, let me ask you this, okay? Because when you say that, right, let's say if perception really was reality. If I went off of the perception of what that guy has for me and it became my reality, who would I be? I wouldn't be that guy that you described at the beginning of the show.
You wouldn't be an agent of positive change.
Right. So while I loved that statement that you made, one, I applied it to that situation, I don't know that perception is reality, because if it is, it can be on one person's side. Like, that's his perception, that's his reality of me. But if his perception becomes my reality, then it changes the generations that come behind me.
And that's why you're a leader.
Well, I'm one part of the leadership. And we shouldn't, because one person says it one way and another person says it another way, and it's all part of the mission. Even the people that come against you to say, Jerry, like, your show has changed from being Positive Cville to being more political. It still helps the mission, because if you don't bring light to it, like the Summer of Hate here, so we need to stop lying and saying that, you know, everybody was from somewhere else. If I feel comfortable going somewhere, I feel comfortable going that place, period. You know, if we look at every situation as the possibility to learn from, and this is something that I learned from Carl Brown, if we don't learn from it, then we've lost. But if we learn from it, even if it's a situation where we might not have really chose the outcome, then we win. It might be small victories. It might be inches at a time. But, you know, anything that Mayor Walker says is just as pivotal in the fight as anything that I'm saying by not saying something out there, because I'm thinking about the people that's coming behind me.
Sure, sure. And I can respect that. What do you think the community learned, not only within Central Virginia, but, I mean, this went global.
You mean the Summer Hate?
Yeah, the poem. The
poem.
The poem went global. What did the community learn?
See, that's the thing. It depends on who you're asking. If you're asking somebody who's always looking for a problem with you, then it just reinforces the hate that's inside of them. We had a young lady that wrote into one of my friends at Charlottesville Tomorrow, white lady, who's a very pivotal person here. And she wanted to know what she as a white lady could do because she didn't know. Well, the problem with racism is you can't see it. So this lady who wants to help but doesn't know the next step to take looks just like the racist person that's standing next to him in the same clothes.
Because she's not taking any steps.
Right.
Because she's doing nothing.
No, not exactly. Because when you don't know what to do, you should look and see and ask and take your time to figure out where you fit at in the equation, because your good intentions could lead things in a worse situation. You know, so, and that's something I couldn't relate to until we got the letter, that there are people that want to help but don't know how. So when they don't say anything, and then they're told that this poem is saying that all white people are R-word and C-wording the black community, that's not the truth, you know? It was talking about the systems that go in place.
See, Judah, can we get Razor a right earpiece? Would you like to be a part of the interview with the candidate, Governor Pete
Absolutely.
Snyder?
If he'll have me, I'll be on.
And then we can continue our conversation after.
Yeah.
Because he's on a tight schedule.
Okay.
And we're 27 minutes in, and I want to keep doing this with you. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be a right earpiece right there for you, Razor. Often the language that Mayor Walker is using is categorizing white people in totality.
Okay.
So
you're saying that
she's broad stroking everybody that's white in the community.
Is she broad stroking white people, or is she broad stroking the system that happens to be controlled by white people? That's two different things.
There is two different things. You're talking systematic, and then you're talking a group of people.
Yeah.
And in many times on her posts, she's extremely active of late on social media.
Okay.
It is white people. And one man talking, just
right.
one man. When you start categorizing people just because of the color of their skin.
Yeah, we don't want that either. That's what we've been forced to deal with, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, because I've never sat down and had a conversation with her, talked to her. So anything that I'm saying is not to be attached to her as truth.
Two guys talking.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, if her wording gets the attention of the people that can make the change, is it bad?
Well, I would call that, using a term from our business, shock jock.
Right.
And shock jock gets attention.
Right.
But when shock jock tactics are utilized over and over again, that attention fades.
Okay.
And then folks start, black, white, Puerto Rican, or Haitian, folks in general, they start saying, all she's doing is talking ill will on white folks.
Right. Right.
I
get that.
Yeah, and then the white folks in the community, and I'm not speaking for all white folks, start asking, why is she only singling out white folks?
Okay.
Now, what I think her intent is to highlight the systematic oppression and racism that has gotten us to this point, and the fact that mortgage lenders wouldn't give loans to people.
Wall Street Journal wrote a story about me with the food truck, about the problems that we have, the systematic problems that we have with getting loans. And that's, anybody can look that up.
Yeah.
You have to, I understand what you're saying, but you're not going as far, in my opinion, as it needs to go. The words that she's using to bring on the ills that's going on aren't done by just one person, right? So if we're looking at, has anybody ever taken the words that she has said and then looked at the problems that she's talking about? Because her comments aren't the be-all, end-all for the black community. What they are is to bring awareness to what it is. And then the next person comes along, which might be me at this particular time, to say, okay, this can help facilitate. And then you come up with the Juan Diegos that say this, and then you got the Charles Lewises and the Max, Celia Robinsons that say that. It's all part of the missions. And perfect example.
Sure.
we merged together, in my humble opinion, talk show, Vinegar Hill Magazine, and Charlottesville Tomorrow to create the Inclusive Media Project, which we won the International Google Grant, right? It is to bring awareness and build up African American media businesses and things of that nature.
Sure.
So we're showing that black and white can coincide if they both work together. It's like I told you earlier.
But that's what we need.
Yeah, we do. But the problem, like you said before, is social media has drawn a line in the sand.
And what did you say?
And what I'm saying is, for somebody to draw the line, somebody has to be in the middle.
That's right.
So if we take that position to where the black people are going to be a little upset, the white people are going to be a little upset, but we're looking for that common truth. That's what we're not getting. I can't imagine another race having to get up and read on social media how the women of their community are being disrespected. The B's, the C word, all types of things. Like, that doesn't exist. So you have a catch-22 as an African-American male like myself. Like, by government standards, I'm Native American, right? But I look like a black man, you know? But when you look at these situations and you say, okay, I'm supposed to defend my sisters. I'm supposed to defend the tribe, my community. That's what we're charged with as men. But we've been labeled as angry black sexual predators, super predators, all these different terms that keep you at bay, because to help, I might get judged. And that's what's happened with a lot of the people who have become successful in the Charlottesville area, people of color, is that they say, well, she shouldn't have said it like this. But they feel that way because they don't want to lose what they have established with non-black people. They got kids off in college. They got a reputation.
Business.
And I'm not knocking any of them because it's all part of the growth. Everybody has their part to play. It's when we start saying that everybody has to fit under whoever is getting attacked at that point.
Sure.
That doesn't make sense, not for growth. And nobody's calling out their own side to say, wait a minute, we might be wrong in our depiction of this. It's not divisive as we think if we look at what they're talking about.
That's very well said. I want to get Pete Snyder on the line.
Yes.
It'll be ringing in your ear too.
Yeah,
Lindsay, if you're watching, we're going to reach out to you in about 15 seconds. On the other side of the interview with Pete Snyder, we'll talk about the responsibility of a platform.
Okay.
And what goes with that responsibility, because I think we're both in agreement that she has perhaps the most influential one as mayor in this community. J-Dubs, Judah Wickhauer is our director. I'm going to reach out to Pete Snyder now. And you have it ringing in your, okay. I will turn this around if you do have a question.
Yeah.
We have him on the line here. All right, Pete, how are you?
Jerry, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well. So, Pete, you have most of the media outlets that cover news in this area, and a lot of the folks in Richmond and Northern Virginia watching you here. First, we'll start open-ended. And before I ask you a question, I want to be straightforward. Is it okay if Troy Robinson is a part of the interview as well with you, Pete?
Troy, fire away.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So the first question for you, Pete, is how's the campaign going?
It is an absolute blast, Jerry. It's funny. People ask, "Oh my gosh, isn't it hard? Isn't it this? Is that?" You know what a privilege it is to get to travel around the most beautiful state in the country. And I'm not just being Pollyannish. It is springtime. It's blooming in Charlottesville. I'm getting to every single nook and cranny of Virginia. We're having a blast. We're meeting voters. We're meeting Republicans. We're meeting folks from every single, independents, Democrats as well, who are all fed up. They're sick and tired of what government has done to them, shutting down our schools, shutting down small businesses, stripping away our civil liberties and constitutional rights, and they want change. So I've been having a blast. We have about 5.5 weeks left to our nominating convention, and I can't wait. We're going to bring it home, my friend.
I'll ask him one more and then turn it around.
Yeah.
The common themes that you're hearing in Northern Virginia, Southwestern Virginia, Central Virginia, the beach, Hampton Roads, what are some of the common themes you're hearing from folks?
Common themes are open our schools. We're 13 months into this mess that's been COVID. why the heck are 83% of the students in Virginia not in the classroom 5 days a week? And then we're hearing from folks that they feel unseen and unheard by government. You know, you either had your business shut down, or you're a restaurateur who's told how many people you can have in and serve and what your hours should be, and no one can be at the bar. They're tired of it. Now, no one wants to harm other people. Everyone wants to be careful, but you know, it's bad business to make your employees sick or your customers sick. But they feel like government has completely botched this, and they're ready for change.
Pete Snyder, guys, is running for governor. I'm going to introduce you here digitally to Mr. Troy Razor Robinson, who is a quintessential leader in this Central Virginia community. Troy, you are live with Pete Snyder.
How you doing, Snyder?
Troy, great to be with you, my friend. Thanks so much for being here.
Not a problem. I got a question for you. All right.
Yes.
I don't know what your stance is when it comes to like the marijuana being legalized here in Virginia, but if you do decide to go along with the common theme, we know that African Americans have been disproportionately arrested for marijuana use. Would you be opposed to possibly giving the first 5, 10 tickets of dispensaries for marijuana to people that have been locked up for marijuana? Because we were trying to bring equity and equality to the African American community, and that definitely would help.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I understand. You know, I do think that African Americans have been disproportionately targeted over the years for marijuana possession. I certainly, all the science and data that I see behind those numbers ring true. No, I don't think if you're, you know, one, I'm not for the bill that passed the General Assembly. I don't think that we should be baking into something race as a reason for why people are getting government-sponsored license or not. I mean, I just think it's unconstitutional. I understand what they're trying to do with that, but I think it's done in absolutely the wrong way. You know, I don't think that law is going to hold up. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's going to be deemed unconstitutional. I think it probably has decent, you know, sentiment to it, but I think it was just executed and done in the wrong way. And no, I wouldn't support that.
Okay. Second question: what's your favorite part of Virginia since you've been going around?
You know, I'm not going to be a politician and say I love all parts of Virginia. I truly do. I have an absolute blast in Southwest Virginia. I've spent a ton of time out there over the past 12 years, have a lot of friends, all up and down the 9th district, as they call it, the fighting 9th. And I just love it there. And, you know, I come from a rural part originally of Pennsylvania. So, you know, has a lot in common with the 5th district where we all live. But also the 9th district as well. So, you know,
all right, thank you for your time.
As I always say, Southwest forever.
All right.
Pete, this question for you, and it's also coming from the feed. The challenges with this vaccination rollout have been extremely well documented. We have frontline restaurant workers in Central Virginia that still can't get this vaccine in their arms. What's going on here? How are we at this point? What do we do to solve this? Because I think we're both in agreement. As the vaccines get distributed, consumer confidence upticks, and then we can start getting these jobs back online.
Absolutely, Jerry. This has been one of the biggest blunders of the Northam era. And you know, we could have planned for it. And I got to tell you, I will not be a partisan with this, right? Let's just take that aside, that I'm a Republican, that Ralph's a Democrat. If Hollywood were writing the script on who would be an action hero during a global pandemic, don't you think they would have written in the only physician governor in America? I mean, it's perfect for him. And he blew it because he didn't have a plan. And he let his bias against President Trump, you know, when Donald Trump stood in front of the nation and said, hey, look, this is really bad, but we're Americans, we're going to beat it, and we're going to have a vaccine within a year. Ralph Northam didn't believe him, and he said he's lying. And he did nothing. He sat on his hands and did nothing. And for us in Central Virginia, you know, I think it's kind of pathetic that we're in the home court of Thomas Jefferson, right? Our health district, which I had no idea that we had such things before a global pandemic, but we do. was called the Thomas Jefferson Health District. Ralph Northam used time and money to rename our health district to the Piedmont Health District during the middle of a global pandemic. That is pathetic. If I were governor, I would make sure that the vaccine was available right now to all adults. I don't know why we still have this waiting in line. We're so much further behind every other state. Our economy is not opening up as quickly as it should be. You mentioned consumer confidence. That is still low. Our schools, the vast majority of them in Virginia, aren't open. It's been horrific. So I've been an executive since I was 26 years old. I would have had a plan for the distribution of the vaccine. I would have put teachers alongside of frontline workers in the very, very beginning of it. But by now, it would be open season for every single adult in Virginia. And we'd be roaring back. I wouldn't have mandates and executive orders pushing back our economy. We'd be wide open, our schools would be open, and it'd be a different place.
Interesting comment coming from the comment and question coming from the Fairfax Teachers Union.
Sure.
And the Fairfax Teachers Union has asked, Mr. Snyder, do you understand our plight with being concerned of our safety within these hallways of these antiquated schools?
Look, I absolutely understand at an emotional level anyone who is dealing with concerns about going back into the workplace or whatever may be done. But, the vast majority of teachers have been vaccinated. And don't take it from me, because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. Take it from Joe Biden's very own coronavirus task force and the CDC that both say it's perfectly safe to be back into the classroom. We are losing a generation of kids. And, the 70% plus of the teachers actually want to be back in the classroom. And it's unfortunate that the unions are keeping them out. So this is a huge problem. We are going to have a generational problem with the kids that we have right here. The loss of learning is going to impact them throughout their lives. And we need to get the schools open. I have great sympathy. I have great empathy. And as governor, if there's ever a shortfall in what we need as far as resources, Fairfax is pretty well off with their school resources. Same with Loudoun, but there are plenty of localities and counties that aren't. I will use state government, private sector, and nonprofit to help bridge the gap on that and get everyone back in the classroom. We can do it safely, but we need to do it now.
This question comes from Gary Lancaster, who's watching in Hampton, Virginia. And Gary says, Peter, what are some of the strategies you have in place to get the Commonwealth from this COVID state and back to whatever the new normal is?
Gary, hey, thanks for dialing in here from Hampton. I'm going to be out there in the next couple days. My strategies are this, and look, in a normal time, Jerry would have a candidate on and make 20 different promises and say 10 different campaign platitudes. You're not going to get that from me. 3 things. We are going to, 1, open our schools 5 days a week, every week, with teachers in every classroom. 2, we're going to open up our economy on day 1 and help save the backbone of our economy and the heartbeat of our community in small business. I know so many entrepreneurs watch this show and tune in every single day. And then lastly, our civil liberties and constitutional rights have been shredded over the past year. I mean, the fact that they're even debating having this vaccine passport. Are you kidding me? That you need to have some sort of a passport? I mean, this is a horrible precedent. We need to restore our rights, our First Amendment rights, our Second Amendment rights, our religious liberties, and that's what I'll do as your next governor.
Stephanie Wilkerson is watching the show in Martinsville, and she says, Peter, in regards to COVID in the Commonwealth, what are things that you would have done differently than the governor, which you've already answered? And the next part of her question is, what does your platform look like when elected in office when you face adversity like the governor has faced so far?
Sure, great question. And Martinsville is a place near and dear to my heart. The Virginia 30-Day Fund, Jerry, which you have had me on to talk about, the nonprofit work that we did to save nearly 1,000 small businesses across Virginia. We partnered with the Harvest Foundation in Henry County and Martinsville. This helped save over 250 small businesses right in Martinsville. So spent a lot of time there and know what's happening. You know, what would I have done differently? As I said before, I would have had an actual plan for the vaccines. I would have had our schools open at the beginning of September, the mid-August of last year. And I would have lifted these executive orders that were restricting our economy. You know, if you look at Florida right now, there is no discernible difference between per capita deaths of COVID and spread of the disease than there is with Virginia. But Florida had their economy open for a whole lot longer, their schools open, and their economy is red hot on fire, and ours is in the dumpster. And that was wrong. And look, some of these things, I give some latitude. You know, elected officials and people didn't know how to deal with this thing. They were trying to do the best in the early days. But where I get upset is after several months go by and you see the data does not match up. There is no reason for us to have our economy under restriction. There's no reason for us to have our schools closed. That's when I get ticked off, and we need real change. So that's one clear example of what I would do differently. Jerry, forgive me, there's a second part of the question, or did I nail both?
No, you did. You answered
All right.
them. You answered them well. 2 questions left. I'm mindful of your time here. The last question we'll throw to you is, why should the Commonwealth vote for you? Before I get to that question, this is from Brian Massey, who's watching in Henrico, and he says, Mr. Snyder, on your website, you call yourself a conservative outlier. Could you identify politicians of yesteryears that you most identify with?
Sure. You know, look, I'm a conservative outsider and a disruptor. So, you know, look, there's only one Donald Trump in America. So I'm not saying that I'm Donald Trump, but I am a businessman who happens to be a conservative, who sees problems, who's going to shake some things up. I think I'm a problem solver, and we're going to advance Virginia. But if you look at, you know, I think from a ability to work with others, you know, John Warner was a great statesman. I look early on. I think when it comes to making sure that we have real education reform, I got to tell you, Jim Gilmore was a bulldog when it came to pushing for education reform. You know, and also I love the fire. And there's only one Patrick Henry, but God bless, he was a great governor of Virginia. And you know, I would love to fight the way Patrick Henry fought for his country and his Commonwealth. So those are a couple of examples. If you look at current landscape, you know, I think Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, is doing a terrific job. He was so far under fire last spring, people saying he was wrong to open the economy and wrong to open up the schools. And you know what? He looks pretty smart right now. So those are just a couple of folks that I could rattle off for you.
Final question. The show is yours. Why should folks in the Commonwealth vote Pete Snyder?
Sure, plain and simple. If you are happy with how government responded over the past year with COVID, if you're happy about the school situation, you're happy about what's happened to our economy, and you think these people are actually looking out for you and your rights, by all means, I'm not your candidate. But I believe we've had 8 years of Northam McAuliffe rule, and us doubling down or going after another 4, we will not be better off. We need real change in the Commonwealth, common sense delivered back to government. And again, the basics of government fell down last year. You know, we have a constitutional responsibility to educate our kids. We just kind of gave up. Not to mention in higher ed, you know, UVA, William and Mary, all of our public institutions are still charging full freight, but offering students a less than University of Phoenix experience. That's crazy and wrong. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business guy. No one's done more surgery and triage on small business on the battlefield operating table than I have. We've helped save nearly 3,000 all across America. I know how to get our economy going again. And, you know, I'm a fighter. I've been a conservative for over 25 years. I am a fighter. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for your constitutional rights and bring some common sense back into government again. So that's it, Jerry. If you want a disruptor who can actually make things better, I'm your guy.
Pete, thank you. I'm grateful for your time. I'm grateful for the perspective. Thank you for coming on the show. We'll reach out to you again. Just thank you for coming on today's program.
Hey, I'm happy to. And unlike our mayor, I love Charlottesville as well. So are we gonna start this campaign for you, Jerry? I want to be, I will raise my hand for the first fundraiser for you for mayor. How does that sound?
I live in Albemarle County. I let our current board of supervisor that's representing my district, Donna Price, know on Monday that I was going to run for her seat when it comes open again. So I will reach out to you and take you up on that. And I'm certainly grateful for your time today, Pete. And I wish you the best of luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Take care, Pete. Pete Snyder, running for governor of Virginia. Razor, thoughts on the interview?
Honest?
Please.
No, I'm just playing with you.
You're always honest.
Yeah, when it came to what he was saying, it was before he even got to the comparison between him and Trump. He showed me that he, in my humble opinion, he's with the have and have-nots. With his mindset with business, and I can understand that because I'm a businessman. There were things that Trump said that I understood on the business side of things. I was like, man, this might work. So I could understand that. But if I wasn't a businessman, I couldn't. The last thing that he said, which is kind of troubling, is that he said, unlike our mayor, I love Charlottesville, right? But people have, and I heard this from a friend of mine, and I heard this in McDonald's. People looked at, I'm gonna use your show for a second. People looked at I Love Charlottesville as the best of Charlottesville, everything that was great. What it has become with the things with the mayor is, if you love Charlottesville, you follow Jerry. If you don't love Charlottesville, you follow Mayor Nikai Walker. And she doesn't love Charlottesville. But if you look at it from across the road, Mayor Nikai Walker loves Charlottesville so much, she's willing to get her ass tore up every day behind everything that she says for Charlottesville. So what kind of love, how can you not look at somebody of loving a place if every time that they wake up in the morning, they got to hear how bad they are for the area? And it just, I don't think that's fair to you. I don't think that's fair to her. Because then people that feel that way will start attaching comments and things to things that to your show, right? That you may not actually feel, because there's no way you can feel that way and say that you want my son to grow up in a quality place, right? So right. That's the problem that we're having. Like I said, when it comes to having communication and talking about racism, is that we're not being open to say, wait a minute, you're going too far. I don't believe that level of racist. And not everybody, what I've learned this last year, not everybody looks at racism the same way. There's people that they can hear a black joke and say that's not racist. And they'll be like, well, it was off tilt, but it's not drag you behind a car racist.
Or the folks that say, I'm not a racist, I have black friends.
I have black friends, for real. I had 3 of them over the house last week. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, when we look at stuff like that, that is racism. There is different levels of it. And a lot of it, when dealing with the black community, has to deal with what is, well, going back to what you said, your perception of where that person is. There's a difference between the black man who's homeless on the street to the one who's walking around in the Brooks Brothers suit, who might have went all, it's like we separate those from two different people on.
But isn't that just human nature?
But see, that's not right though, because
But how do we fix that?
Even in our community, well, even in the world, we tend to look at people from where they are and not where they came from. Okay. There's no difference between a Jamaican, an African, and an African American, honestly. There's no difference between an American white person, a person from England or Ireland. We look at it from where they land as opposed to from where they took off. That's divisiveness, If you're white, you're white. If you're black, you're black. There's nothing wrong with that. And people have different outlooks on their community. But you'll never know how I feel unless I tell you or you ask, without it being a statement or confrontational. We got to get to that point.
And that's what we're trying to do, and that's what you and Charles and Max are trying to do with the conversation. Like, I'm going to straight up say this.
Yeah, come on.
In my humble opinion,
Yeah.
your talk show and this talk show are having the most real talk of any in this community.
They are. And we can't let people separate the two. You know,
walk me through that.
We have to be able to, like, I would love for you to come to our show.
I would love to do it.
You know.
Because we have the value, we have the...
I heard that, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I will do it. You tell me when.
Okay.
I will be there in a
Will
heartbeat.
do.
I promise you.
Okay.
We have the luxury of long-form content.
Yes.
Where the TV news has got to fit everything in a 30-second segment.
Right.
Or the newspaper has got a couple paragraphs, and they're just trying to get the most inflammatory quote possible to get people to click the headline.
Yeah. Now, let me speak on that part. That's one reason why I joined Charlottesville Tomorrow.
Yeah.
They made the mission of saying, okay, there is a difference in the way that we can report the story where people don't know it's a black person, it's a white person. It's about the story. And if it's a good story, it's a good story. And you draw your conclusion off of that, not based off of the verbiage that's used to tell you what type person it is. You and I go rob a bank. Troubled UVA graduate finds trouble and has opioid addiction that he needs help with.
Yeah.
I do it. Thug from Orange County does XYZ, and you know what I'm saying? So you already know what color they are.
Yeah.
And that has been a mission of Charlottesville Tomorrow, where they've been championing, you know, the equality
of news.
Now, the problem with that, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I am, and I just got to reap the repercussions from it. There are people that have supported organizations like Charlottesville Tomorrow.
You're talking the money. Yeah.
That once they find out that you're going in a different direction, and won't give you an answer. Right. Now, that is something that's very real. Like, ask yourself, what is it about the growth of something? Because you're not leaving anything. I mean, there are times when people stop talking about something and go to something else. And you say, I don't really believe in that. But if they're still talking about what they always talked about when you were supporting it, and then they're growing the equality of the community, and you find yourself withdrawing, you have to ask yourself, why is that? And on the black side of things, nobody that I spoke with wanted me to join Charlottesville Tomorrow because it
was a white news organization?
And the way that they portrayed themselves over the course of time. Yeah. Nobody wanted me that I know, to be honest with you, Jerry, wanted me to come on this broadcast today.
Wow.
Because of the fear of, if I say something wrong,
that it would be
manipulated?
Backlash.
Not by you, but by your listenership. They'll say, okay, well, he's only going to say that because he's a supporter of Nikai Walker and XYZ.
Did you support the language she chose in totality?
This was the thing about the language. And I sat on this for days. I'm talking about days. The language that was used.
Did it catch you off guard?
No.
Wow.
It did not catch me off guard. And this is why. Shortly after after I found out about it, I heard it from you, then I had a white lady call me that listens to the show. And she said, I agree with everything that she said. I said, what about the language? She said, what do you say to get somebody's attention about something that you're sick and tired of that they won't stop doing? I had no answer for her, because if somebody was bothering you and me and we told them to get the heck off of me, and then they continue to do it, and I told you to get the hell off of me, eventually
you got to raise your voice. And
you got to do something.
Right,
so her language, while I may have chose different words, I wasn't in her space when she wrote it. So to judge her and to judge anything the way that she wrote it is to take from the origin of what it came from. So I can't say I support or not support it, especially since it got the attention and we're sitting here talking about the change that needs to come from it.
That's well said. That's very well said. How about the responsibility of the platform that accompanies the title of mayor?
Yes.
And then the responsibility or what is expected of the title of mayor. I've said on the show often, that there's a tremendous need in any community for activism.
Yes.
And that's the only way, that is one way, not the only way, but one way that we're going to bridge the wealth gap, the education gap, the inequalities that every community has that are certainly prevalent here in Central Virginia as well. The activism that, say, someone like Tanisha Hudson is doing.
Yes.
I admire.
Yeah.
She puts in the freaking work. She is attending the meetings. She's on the Zoom call. She's spending her own money on
She's holding people
FOIAs.
accountable.
Holding people accountable. Right. And I admired when Nakia Walker, before she was mayor, before she was a councilor, she was Nakia Walker, and she was going to all the meetings in person before COVID, and she was often the loudest voice in the room. She was putting in the work, right? Then when she put in the work and people realized that she was courageous and that she had hustle and thick skin and was fearless, a lot of the qualities you need now in 2021 in the ubiquitous nature of social media, you need these qualities, right? She had them. But once she got that title of mayor, not just councilor, but mayor, the one where the New York Times reaches out to, the world's newspaper, and says, what's Charlottesville doing? From my standpoint, the champion cannot say in the world's newspaper that Charlottesville's an ugly to the soul kind of place. Because once she got that title, then she has to be the head coach. You know, she's the CEO, right? And if Tim Cook at Apple, the CEO, if he had said this stuff about Apple, that man would have been pink slipped in a heartbeat.
Right.
That's like, if she was even a counselor, like a counselor can be an activist. A counselor, like a city councilor, can be an activist. But the mayor is the champion. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is she's still Nakia Walker, whether it was Nakia Walker post Summer of Hate, Nakia Walker to this day. She based it off of truth and not letting a position dictate who she are, and that's more what I gravitate to.
Okay.
If you're going to tell the truth, you're going to tell the truth. If you're going to become a politician, then you're going to become a politician. And what she ran on,
Unmasking the Illusion,
is what she talks about. But because it shines a light on not just the bad people, but the structure itself, then everybody said, no, don't say that because it makes us look bad. And that's part of the problem. Now, had she said it differently, would it have been received differently? Or would it have been ignored? We don't know because it wasn't said differently. It was said the way it was said. So my answer is, it doesn't matter what the position is or what you're encamped with the title. The truth should always reign free first. And if that was her truth, that was her truth.
Do you feel, not we, do you feel as if, has she unified the community? Has she led us forward?
That doesn't, okay, a good question, great question. Do I feel she's unified I don't know. I think so, but I don't think it looks the way that people want it to look.
Ooh, tell me that, what that means.
Well, she's unified the community because we're all talking about the same issue.
Okay.
When nobody was talking about it because it didn't apply to you.
Okay.
So the rich Caucasian person with the 7-figure income is talking about what
this poem.
Talking about the poem, just like the person who's working for minimum wage is talking about.
That's true.
That's unity too. Now, it may not be the unity that somebody wants to have,
Dude, that
but
was
it's still
well
unity.
said right there.
I'm married to Maxine Robinson. I ain't got no choice.
That was well said right there. So the unity is the subject matter.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily.
And it's not her job to fix everything. Like, her job may be to flash, like stand at the end of the road and wave her arms. And then your job may be to say, okay, we don't like it that way. We're still going to do it, but we're going to do it this particular way.
Yeah,
to the
consider
people
this way.
Well, that might not be her part though. her part may be exactly what she's supposed to be doing. Martin Luther King might have had to get shot in the neck for me to be able to sit here at I Love Seville. You know, Malcolm X may needed to have stood by the window with the gun and said, by any means necessary, in order for me to own the businesses that I have in a town that wasn't set up. My business, one of my businesses, is set up in the very place of the land that was stolen from African Americans, right? So who's to say?
Vinegar Hill.
Yeah, Vinegar Hill. So who's to say that it's not working? Because we haven't got to the end of days yet. When you take something like Alexander put, and he wanted to name it Black History Pathway, every city that has African American has a Black History Pathway, right? You don't have to name everything behind Uncle such and such that was here, the bridge over here, the road. It kind of loses its zeal because that person is locked into that one particular area. But when you take something like a Black History Pathway, you will be part of that just as much as I will.
Sure.
Because we're
And our
talking
kids.
about but no, not so much our kids. Our kids, they don't have to take on the fight that we take on. And that's one of the reasons that I've been struggling with. And you say we hope. I don't want my kids to walk my path. You know, I can't stand to see my beautiful little boys talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, that my granddaddy and my great-grandfather was talking about in the Black community. That troubles me. So if I have to essentially lose my life for them to be better, and that doesn't always mean somebody kills me. They can kill me financially. They can ruin my businesses. They can badmouth. They cannot support me. They can kill me in all types of ways because they hold the power. Now, who holds the power and what do they look like? Now, from what you said earlier, it just sounds like Nakia condensed it down to who holds the power and what their skin color looks like.
Who holds the power?
I think, I do think that white men hold the power. You know, that does not mean all of them are abusing the power. But if you allow something to take place, even if you're not doing it, you're part of it.
Okay.
The structural system of the 5th District when it comes to
Gerrymandered.
no, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the court system when it comes to like child support and the guardian ad litems. You know, they're separating families no different than selling them on the auction block. When you tell a father that he has to be condensed down to this time right here, the court system shouldn't be used as a retribution for a failed relationship. But custodial parents have figured out that they can use that against non-custodial parents for the relationship not working. And more often than not, if your skin has some melanin to it, you worry about going to court and coming home. You worry about how much is going to be taken from you. Like, I even had a judge tell me one time, just because I'm the kid's father does not mean I have a right to them. This is the 5th District. You know, I have guardian ad litems that say, you should have the kids because they're in a toxic situation, but I can't be the one to take a black child from a black mother and give it to a black man. These are conversations that we have in our community that nobody wants to talk about because then you become the target, you know. And that's what happened to Dr. Bellamy. That's what's happened to Mayor Walker. That's happened to anybody that we don't rally around. Certain organizations, and please, this is my comments and nobody else's. You take organizations like the NAACP that started off great. We didn't support them the way that we should. So in order to survive, they had to let other institutions in the money to be able to keep the doors open to be able to help you. Now, the problem with that is when the fight gets or the heat gets a little too hot, somebody may or may not get a call to say, okay, I don't need you to show up at this particular fight. You know, just look at the difference of the way it was back in, you know, Martin's day to where it is now. You know, like the governor was complaining about him changing the name of the Thomas Jefferson District to the Blue Ridge District.
Yeah, the Piedmont District and the Blue Ridge Health District from the Thomas Jefferson Health
Right.
District.
So when it comes to things like the United Negro College Fund and different entities like that have changed their name to incorporate more people. Where are the people that's in power to say, oh, no, that's not right. That's for them, to help them. You don't hear that then. It's just when it imposes on somebody else's livelihood that we have a problem with it.
I'll throw this to you.
Just my take.
No, that was a good take. We have a conference call in 4 minutes here,
Okay.
myself and Judah. I want to first extend any time you have free time.
Thank you.
Please, I'm sincerely mean that.
Okay.
Red carpet,
And Charles is going to send you when you can come to our
please,
show.
I will
Okay.
be there and early. I'll
Okay.
be there anytime you want. You have my word.
All
I
right.
promise you.
Thank you.
In my humble opinion. Since August 12th, 2017, I still see the statues in the public parks.
Yes.
I see one less African American on council. I see 0 African Americans on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. I see 2 African American restaurant owners in the city of Charlottesville.
3, I think.
3. Mel's, Royalty Eats,
And Caribbean.
Caribbean. Okay.
And Angelique. What I'm talking about. I'm getting
4.
ready to. Yeah.
There's 4. So there's
Yeah.
4. And if we're missing any, please, we're not trying to leave anybody out. It's just we're having a conversation. So 4. I see no African American vineyard owners, winery owners, brewery owners.
Very, very few homeowners. You know, we more rent than ownership. Like,
What has changed? What has happened from a progress standpoint that has closed wealth, education, and the social gap that was as wide as, I don't know, Mississippi River, James River?
when you had what was considered the 40 acres and a mule ownership, you had a lot of people who, one of the worst things that could have happened, in my humble opinion, this is Razor, not nobody else, was integration was one of the worst things that could have happened to the black community, because we were supposed to integrate our money and not ourselves. So we felt that when it came to education, that it leveled the playing field. But when you go get an education, you're not hiring yourself. So if you don't have connections in the places of power, or you're not somebody that they can bring forth to say, okay, you can facilitate the mission, but it looks like this, you're not going to get anything. So then when the kids grew up that went to college and the parents die off, they say, I'm not going back to the country, because a lot of times that reminds them of what they lost or when they were less than. The perception, like you say, was less than. So they sell the property for pennies of what they'll never be able to buy a corner of it back. So we lost our value. When we had nothing, we were able to thrive like Toledo and Philadelphia when it first got started, and what Compton and Watts was originally. But when you have other entities that see African Americans thriving, they want a piece of the pie. You know, no different than black people. Yeah, I see you going on vacation, changing your zip code. I want a piece of the pie. It goes both fold. But the problem is, one actually controls it, and one hopes that they can find the crumbs off of it. And you have so many people of color that say, okay, let me be the middleman between my people and you. Just give them something, and you should be happy with that. You know, I saw some recent tweets on the Kai's thing where, you know, they was like, you shouldn't be talking about give me generation. Like, I don't owe you anything. You should, like, I should be happy that I'm not enslaved. Like, that's the craziest. It's on her feed, you know, that people think like that. Well, we don't know what that person's job is. What if that's a supervisor somewhere? What if that's a judge somewhere? What if that's an officer? You know, we don't do a good job of vetting these people on our end to be able to control anything. But the problem is, the people in power do a job of vetting them, so that they know that a lot of times the mission will continue. You know, these systems will continue. I'm going to put somebody in place that has my ideologies. Why would I put somebody in place that's going, I'm going to bump heads with the whole time? So it hasn't went anywhere. But when we try to acknowledge that, then there's a problem. you know. So honestly, just like the civil rights movement, it's going to come through people that look like you, Jerry. That, you know, other than that, Nakai is always going to be a target. I may turn into a target. Wes Bellamy is going to turn into a target. Anybody that seems to be a problem will be a target, you know. It's just, it's not a good situation. We're not getting drugged by trucks and hung by trees all the time. We're not bad like we were, but most people wouldn't trade places with me, even if I'm financially more lucrative than them, just because of my skin color. You know, that's a problem.
Well said. How can we follow In My Humble Opinion?
In My Humble Opinion is on WVAI radio station, the only urban station here in Charlottesville, and we're on Alexa, and we're worldwide and tune in on Sundays from 12 to 3.
Okay, Sundays from 12 to 3. And you also host...
The Body.
That's right.
I host The Body, which is a Christian talk show, my way. You know, I'm not a pastor or preacher or anything. I have real-world conversations about a lot of the things that people feel about church that they won't say, you know, so... And just have open conversation, because there was a time where I wanted to serve God, but I didn't know how. I didn't even know how to pray. You know, I didn't know how to ask for anything. You know, so, yeah.
Troy
Yes,
Racer
sir.
Robinson, fantastic today. Follow In My Humble Opinion on social media.
Mm-hmm. Tune into the Sim Project through what we had through Charlottesville Tomorrow, Vinegar Hill, and In My Humble Opinion. That will be one of the catalysts for changing Charlottesville. You know, that, I mean, it will be. We have a collection of people that have come together with great ideas that span just beyond those three. The entities that's part of that, from every aspect, from the person who does the paperwork to the ideas to everything, is about bringing inclusiveness to Charlottesville. So that we are definitely going to change this landscape.
Thank you for your time today.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you for coming to the show today. Seriously.
And thank you for tuning in.
Anytime. Next week, following week.
Okay.
Anytime.
Charles will be in touch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And anytime you hear.
Okay.
Sincerely mean that.
Right.
Anytime you want to come here.
Thank you.
Anytime. And anytime for In My Humble Opinion, I will be there. Guys, this is the I Love Seville show.
We didn't have no questions. We didn't have no comments.
I mean, it's blowing up.
Yeah.
I mean, wait till you see it. I mean, it's.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that.
I wish we had, like, you know, I have 3 minutes late for my call and the guy just called.
Yeah.
That's why I want to do it again.
My job is just to bring awareness.
Yeah.
My part, not to solve anything, not
Your
to tell
job
you I
is
got
to
it
get,
figured out.
Like our job was like it's real. We get people thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, we have real conversation, and like we are you know, unafraid to have conversation that is going to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, it should.
It should make people
It should.
uncomfortable.
We're in the middle. We draw that line.
Right. We're in the middle.
We're in the middle.
We're in the middle of the sand where the line is drawn, and the hope is, with the platforms we have, to bring folks to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, we're back tomorrow at 12:30. Thank you for joining us today on a Wednesday. You guys have a good afternoon. Troy, that was... You were fantastic.
Thank you. It's easy with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It's easy with you.